Now, it seems to be the rumor that just won't go away, which is that there are multiple cuts of The Rise of Skywalker, including a rumored George Lucas cut that features Anakin's Force Ghost at the end, and that eventually one of these cuts, probably the Lucas or maybe the J.J. Abrams cut as it's called, is going to be released on Disney Plus or maybe be part of some sort of special edition home release of the film. And look, before even discussing this further, let me just say that of course there are or were what you could call multiple cuts of The Rise of Skywalker. I mean, it's not like they sat down one time, put everything together, did a little bit of editing, and were completely happy and said, that's it, we've got our movie. Hell, just watching the film, seeing the crazy pace that it moves at, makes it feel like half the movie is missing or was edited out, that this thing was hacked apart and patched back together time and time again, until we got, well, what we got and ended up with. Still, that doesn't necessarily mean truly different versions of the movie with entirely different plot points or story elements or a radically different ending even exist. Though at the same time, no, I'm not saying that's impossible either. There were so many leaks and rumors out there regarding this movie and still coming out about it, that who knows what really went on behind the scenes. Who knows what and how much changed along the way. And the fact that basically the whole story leaked online a few months before the release is proof that at least some of these leaks and rumors were indeed true or accurate. And again, one of the biggest rumors going around right now, or continuing to go around, it's been out there for a while, is that there is a George Lucas cut of The Rise of Skywalker that, as mentioned earlier, includes the Force Ghost of Anakin at the end, along with who knows what other possible differences. And really, the only evidence that we have that this could be a possibility is that, according to Chris Terrio, co-writer of Episode 9, he and J.J. Abrams did sit down with George Lucas at one point to have a long philosophical discussion about the Jedi and the nature of the Force, which then means, in some respect, Lucas is confirmed to have some level of involvement with the Rise of Skywalker. However, considering we got that strange ending with all the Jedi sort of against all the Sith, it tends to say to me that they didn't listen too well during that discussion or take any notes, because that doesn't line up too well with what Lucas has previously said about how the Force works. And so if theoretically Lucas was brought in at some point late in the game to try and work his magic, to maybe film a few extra scenes and or edit the movie a certain way, or to just give them some advice on how things should go, the ending seems to say they really didn't go with his advice or ideas. I can't see any way that was the end Lucas would have gone with or endorsed. Because, as discussed in other videos of mine, the end of The Rise of Skywalker destroys the whole Force Ghost concept in more ways than one, by making it not only where it didn't really matter which Jedi had become one, since they all showed up anyway, but also by implying that the Sith also live on in some capacity, which is something Lucas was very much against. At one point in the Clone Wars animated series, even during the Mortis story arc, the spirits of Revan and Bane were going to show up, but Lucas himself nixed the idea because he didn't want to in any way imply the Sith could live on, that there was some sort of long-term payoff, if you will, for following the dark side. He wanted it to be known that their quest for immortality was a futile one, and that the only way to achieve it in any capacity was to be a true servant of the light, which I've always loved because of the irony, that for the Sith to achieve what they want so badly, they needed to take the complete opposite path. So anyway here, if there is a Lucas cut, or if he at some point even just offered them some suggestions on things to change, I'd have to imagine he told them to change the ending, because it does not align at all with previously established lore. It even contradicts it. And by the fact that Lucas didn't show up for the premiere of The Rise of Skywalker, and as far as I know, an explanation for that has never been given, I suppose we could take that or construe it as possible evidence that he was upset that his cut wasn't used, or his suggestions were simply ignored. And thanks to Bob Iger's book, and he's of course the CEO of Disney, we know Lucas hasn't been too happy in the past when his ideas were ignored or discarded, like when they completely threw out his story treatments for the sequel trilogy. So if they literally went to him asking for help with Episode 9, asked him to fix their mess, and he either agreed or maybe was forced to help them because it's in his contract to make himself available as a consultant, and they then decided to once again not use his ideas or story, I could certainly see him skipping the premiere. And no, just because he wasn't at the premiere isn't exactly proof of anything, there could be a very good reason why George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, would skip out on the 9th and final installment of the story he kicked off some 40 years ago, why he wouldn't go to the premiere that he was probably contractually obligated to attend and to endorse to some degree. I mean, maybe he was busy washing his hair that night. In all seriousness though, it is rather strange that he wasn't there, though all we can do is speculate about the reason why. But again, we know he talked extensively with Abrams and Terrio about the Jedi and the Force, or the philosophies behind them, and we know or can deduce that the movie didn't end in the manner or a manner he would have likely approved of or thought fit in with the rest of his story. So I do think there's a good chance that, yes, Lucas gave them some ideas, and they again didn't go with them. Now, did he himself actually film some scenes and put a cut of the movie together? Well, to me that seems much more unlikely, though again, I guess not impossible. If anything, or at most, maybe he wrote some scenes or gave them some rough ideas which led to some scenes being filmed, and maybe he was even on set for that. I just have a hard time believing they literally let him take the proverbial reins and film scenes and edit a version of the movie, and then said, nah, we're going with something else. Though again, it would explain his absence at the premiere. Furthermore, if that did happen, if they did bring him in to do some actual filming and editing, I can't imagine why they wouldn't run with that version simply for the sake of marketing, unless it was maybe really, really bad. I mean, after The Last Jedi, I wasn't overly excited for Episode 9, but I still tried to cling on to hope. I still wanted 9 to be good. I even wanted to be excited about it. And if I'd heard Lucas was coming back, if the marketing and commercials were all about how the one who had started the saga was now coming back to finish it, I certainly would have been excited for that, regardless of how the previous 2 movies in the trilogy had turned out, and I don't think I would have been alone in that excitement. So honestly here, though I'd love it if one existed, and I'd love to see it if it did, I don't really think there's an actual Lucas cut of The Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, we know he was called in and sat down with Terrio and Abrams, and we can assume he threw all sorts of ideas at them for the movie. He probably even suggested that Anakin should be in there at the end. But I really get the feeling they didn't listen to him at all, and they did what they thought was best, or what Disney thought was best, which meant no appearances of the Force ghost of Anakin at the end, and instead all the Jedi showed up. And when he found out that they hadn't taken his advice yet again, Lucas said screw it and didn't go to the premiere. The end. And if any other version or cut of the film does exist, it would likely be the J.J. Abrams cut, though I don't know if that would be any better or really any different than the actual theatrical release. Likely it'd just be longer but basically the same story, which in theory could make it a better film to some extent, since one of the issues with the film is the pace, and the fact that you're just jumping from one scene to the next. And if they added a few more character moments in there, perhaps it'd be better, though still not a great movie. And when you consider there were no deleted scenes included in the home release of The Rise of Skywalker, which is usually a selling point for home releases, it is possible that they are considering, or at the very least leaving the door open, for some sort of special or longer edition of the film at some point. I don't think that proves a JJ cut exists, but perhaps it means one could be cobbled together and called that for some future release down the road. Either way here, I'm not holding my breath about ever seeing a Lucas cut of The Rise of Skywalker. If one existed and they didn't go with it originally, that means they feel it probably wasn't very good, because if it was even decent, they again would have capitalized off using it on the marketing opportunity of the return of George Lucas, which means if they think it's that bad, they'll likely be very reluctant to ever release it. But who knows, I guess. At this point, what do they really have to lose when it comes to the sequel trilogy? Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to weigh in on this topic. Do you think there's a Lucas cut of The Rise of Skywalker, and could it ever be released? Whatever you think, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.